Hey there friends, hopefully you're enjoying gardening week. I'm Frugal Green Girl and I've put out a video on gardening every day this week. And this happens to be the very last one. So again, hopefully you're not sick of me, but again, this is the last one at least. So this one is my guide to companion planting. Companion planting is basically planting things together at the same time in a way that has each thing helping each other out, or one thing is helping the other one. Does that make sense? So it's not like succession planting where you plant things at different times, you want a staggered harvest or, just to make the most of the space. This is more because when you plant A with B, A helps B and that sort of thing. So just a couple quick examples. Whenever anyone is talking about companion planting, it seems like they always talk about the Three Sisters. The Three Sisters is basically an old Native American way of, planting things where you would plant like a corn plant and then a pole bean or a couple of them maybe, and then some squash in between the rows of the corn with the beans. So of course the corn grows upright. Pole beans like something to climb on, so they'll wrap themselves around the corn, so the corn is like a living trellis, and then the squash makes it to where there's no weeds or anything. And it also keeps the ground shaded so that you don't get as much evaporation. So you end up, having to use less water. So all three of those things help each other out. But additionally, beans are actually good at pulling nitrogen out of the atmosphere and then putting it down in the ground. And both the corn and the squash need lots of nitrogen. So it's almost like you're planting a plant that produces its own fertilizer for the things that are growing with it. Do you see what I'm saying? So each of those three things helped the other ones. So there you go. That's an excellent example of different ways. How I use that sort of thing today would be that when I do my succession planting, oftentimes I'll plant greens like I mentioned, and then I'll do like a bush bean, and then when I take out the bush beans, I'll do greens again after it. Well, because greens like lots of nitrogen, the beans will actually put, nitrogen into the ground, and then when I plant the greens after it, they grow like super vigorously because they have all that nitrogen. So that's a good example, again, of both succession planting and companion planting. But that's sort of a hybrid, kind of thing. In this video, I would prefer to talk mainly about the companion planting. So instead of just going through a list and telling you all the different things that you could plant and different things that you could plant them with, I've been doing different experiments over time, and there are some that I have found has been more successful than others. And so instead of, seeing me just yakety schmack again, I'm just going to take you into my garden and show you some of the ways that I am using it in my own garden this year. This is exactly what my garden looks like today, which I'm not entirely done with it, so maybe you'll see a weed here and there, and some things that are going to need stakes still that I haven't put, stakes in with the peppers and stuff, but whatever. You guys are my good friends. You'll overlook it, I'm sure. But do keep that in mind, it is freshly planted and it still has a little bit more work, but it does show some examples of some ways that I use companion planting and the ways that it has helped me. And most of the stuff that I'm planting in my backyard garden right now are all warm weather crops, which is mainly what people are planting right now. And it's a lot of the, ways that we can help eliminate some of the issues that we have with those crops, like cucumbers, squash, tomatoes, and things like that, peppers, all things that can, have ailments. And then, again, I'll show the ways that I plant something with those things to make it to where you don't have to, spray like herbicide or pesticide or anything like that, because you're just planting plants that you're actually going to use and harvest from, and it's going to make it to where you don't have to, again, use any of those chemicals. So it's a really good way to use organic gardening methods and, use less, chemicals. And I realize I'm not able to give an exhaustive list on the things that, you can do to companion plant. In this video, I would prefer to maybe just introduce the idea in case it's new to you, or, just show some of the ways that have really been effective for me. And then what I would instead recommend is maybe go to a website. I'll post one in the description box below. I think it's Wikipedia. And they list a whole bunch of different plants and then the stuff that they can actually repel. So again, instead of this being a huge long video of me just listing everything, no need for that. I haven't even tried them all anyway. I prefer to give, tried and true methods on my videos. So the ones I'll suggest I have tried and I do know for sure work. But then for other examples, you know, maybe you have some things in your area that I don't have. Like I don't have an issue with slugs in my garden, but I know a lot of people do. So maybe you could figure out what on that list could repel slugs or whatever. So yeah, go, you know, visit a list or another website and then, you know, maybe try and use a companion planting in your own yard. So let's go ahead and visit my garden now. Okay, so here is one of the beds. I am actually not done planting this bed yet, but as you can see I have some tomatoes in there, and these are actually chives, and then I've got some basil I haven't, you know, yet planted, but I'm going to throw it in there maybe around the edges, you know, over here, down here, somewhere where when it spreads it'll still be not taking over too much space, but then also close enough that it'll be helpful to the tomatoes. But the reason why I plant them this way is because the chives help keep away the spider mites, which is an issue that we tend to get once in a while here with my garden, and then the basil helps keep away aphids. So those two work really well together with the tomatoes. Okay, so this bed looks kind of chaotic, but let me explain it really quick. I actually usually like to stake my peppers, but I haven't quite gotten there. I was going to do that maybe today, but I'm just filming it before that's done. But yeah, so that's what this is. It's a pepper bed. And so hopefully you can see pepper here, pepper back there, and then the ones in between, like this one, those are all basils. Basil helps to keep away aphids, just like I mentioned with the tomatoes, and since aphids are the #1 issue I have with peppers, I make sure to put lots and lots of little basil plants here in between the peppers. Pepper, basil, these types of things. It helps keep all those aphids down, and then if aphids do start to infect one, say the aphids infected this one, the basil around it would hopefully help keep it from spreading to the other ones. Another one of my favorite plants to put in with other beds would be marigolds. I really like marigolds because they're excellent at keeping away a variety of things. I have heard that it keeps away things like, you know, squash bugs, thrips, tomato hornworms, but my favorite thing that I use marigolds to keep away would be root knot nematodes. Nematodes are like microscopic bugs that live in the soil. Now, of course, there's bad bugs and then there's good bugs, just like we have in our own bodies. We have the good gut bacteria, you know, that's why people take probiotics, you know, to help keep us healthy. But then we also end up with, you know, bugs that can obviously make us sick. So the root knot nematodes would be kind of like the bugs that would make the plants sick. It makes the roots all weird. You know, if you've ever had carrots and they were all gangly, where instead of it just being one big long carrot, they get like two and maybe like off nubbins and things like that. I don't know what those are called. But yeah, but that can be a symptom of root knot nematodes. So they attract pollinators to the garden also. They have, you know, flowers obviously. They look really pretty. And then they also keep the plants healthy. So I've planted marigolds, as you can see, all the way around the edge of my bed. And then of course the peppers and then the basil in between. Not only so I can grow lots of basil, make some pesto, dry it, etc., but also to keep down the aphids from the peppers. So it's a good relationship. They all work together, and it actually works out really well. Now I want you to notice, though, these peppers are planted a little bit close together, like see? So maybe some of you might be thinking, oh, that's a little close together. I'm planting small varieties of things because I have a fairly limited amount of space. Let me show you here. This is my pepper bed. So here I have all the marigolds, all the basil, and then many pepper plants. But I choose small varieties so I can fit a fair amount of plants in here, and then they don't end up taking up tons of space, if that makes sense. So I chose the small little peppers. Maybe you've seen those at the grocery store. They grow only to be like maybe that big instead of like a big bell pepper. And on the seed packet it says to plant them 12 inches apart. And all of these are planted no less than 13, with a few exceptions. I think a couple of them back there maybe got, like, I think 11 inches, but they're pretty close. They're all really close to that 12 inches. And from my experience growing them last year, 12 inches does not reduce their productivity, and everything is fine with them. So yeah, just keep that in mind. If you plant, you know, smaller varieties of things, or even like bush varieties, which I guess I could show you next, you can fit more plants in a smaller amount of space. And then when you have a garden bed like this, which I believe is about 3 by 9 feet, you can fit in a fair amount of plants. Okay, so this bed is a cucumber bed, and dill plants really well next to the cucumbers, which is really neat actually, because cucumbers and dill put together make pickles, so it's actually a pretty neat little relationship. So this one looks quite a bit more maybe like sparse, but keep in mind that cucumbers get really big. So while there's a cucumber here and then there's another one way over there, and that's actually a full 3 feet apart, you definitely want to keep that spacing so that they can be happy and spread like they would like to. And again, I choose bush or dwarf style varieties so that I can fit more in a smaller space. There's also some space outside of the bed here and to the back. So if they ramble a little bit, they can actually start to grow and go out there and back here in this whole area, and that is actually fine. So they can have their main spot where they grow inside the garden bed, and then they have more space to ramble outside of the bed as well. So the dill here, what it is doing, of course there's more marigolds keeping away all those root knot nematodes and things like that, but the dill grows to be really tall, and then the cucumbers spread around the ground, so they work together well in that way. But then dill also helps repel aphids, spider mites, and squash bugs, so dill is another good one to plant with squash. You can plant them near your cucumbers or your squashes and things like that, even eggplant, but definitely keep them away from the tomatoes. So here's a quick shot of this cucumber bed from front to back there, with all the cucumbers, again, spread out really far apart, 3 feet, and choosing bush varieties, and then of course dill and marigolds planted in there with them. And then finally here is my squash bed. I have 2 plants in each of these, but I intend to probably take out one of them. I'm going to see if maybe one of them gets beaten up by the hail, because we do have some hail, unfortunately, probably coming tonight, they said on the news. Anyway, so I put 2 of them in here. If one of them gets eaten by a goat that escapes, or if it gets, you know, beaten up by the hail, I'll pull the other one out. So I put them in here, I see if one of them takes off better than the other, and then I pull one of the plants, because honestly, I just don't think that this is enough space. Even though I plant them really far apart, I'm just not sure if there's enough space for 2 of them to go here together. So I'm gonna take out one of them so that they're not overplanted. But do notice that I do keep marigolds again, because those detract squash bugs, and that's one of the main things that I have problems with in my own garden is squash bugs. So yeah, that's why I plant them over here. This black thing in the back, that's an experiment. That's a composting worm tube, and yeah, so I don't want to explain it. I'm doing an experiment this year. I do a little bit of experimenting every year just to try different things and see what works and what doesn't, and then of course the things that work out I share with you guys so that you can, you know, try them out too if that's something that interests you. But yeah, I like to do tried and true stuff on my video or my channel only, so I don't want to explain that, because again, this is my first year trying that out. So yeah, anyway, so plant squashes, again, more marigolds. I almost can't have too many marigolds in my garden. Okay, so let's just show the whole thing as a whole. So here we have 2 of those tomato beds, again with basil and chives. Down here we have 2 big 3x9 beds where we have the pepper bed I showed you. This is a bush bean bed where I have nothing but bush beans planted. On the right side there's green, and on the left side there is yellow. And then back here we have the squash bed, and then we have the cucumber bed back there. So all in all, it's a pretty big garden, but this is only my backyard garden. I actually have more garden space on the side of my house, and then more garden space in my front yard. So this is just, you know, again, a small portion of the plants, and then some of the companion plants that I put in with them. So hopefully that was helpful. Thanks for watching. I'm Frugal Green Girl. We'll see you next time. Dog photo bomb. Move it to the other side. Cat photo bomb. Oh well, let's see. We'll get this to where it won't have anything distracting on either side. Okay.